Hi, Johnny.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am all right. It has been a long week, and I think it's Wednesday,
I think
or is it Tuesday?
think you're right. I think it's Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday. So, let's start with a struggle, strive, and thrive. What are yours this week?
Well, I think this has been ongoing for quite some time because I think I actually mentioned it in with you in episode 2, and then again with Savannah in episode 3. But our struggle has continued since then, persisted since then, with regard to medications and
Mm,
the availability of them. So just to recap, we had a we had supply issues getting a particular ADHD medication for the last 3 months of last year, and ultimately we ended up switching to an extended release version of it because it was easier to get. But it was not as effective. And I'm not a doctor, but in talking with the dev pediatrician, I think we landed on, because KDM5C kids also have pretty severe constipation issues. The way extended release pills work, the medication wasn't getting into his system. It was just kind of lodged in his intestines in the poop. Um, so anyway, so we finally got his old medication thanks to your advice on doing a mail order pharmacy refill, and we got a yes. Um, so we got a 3 month supply, but because of the way the school works, where they can't give they can't give a child a medication during school hours unless you have all sorts of forms and the doctor fills it out and signs it. We couldn't start until this week in school, which meant I waited until Saturday to transition him back to the old medication, thinking it would just be great, but it was actually worse than if he had
mm,
been taking nothing for, and I don't know why. So like him scratching his brother's face and all that, it was the worst on Saturday that it's ever been. So that was the struggle. The strive, thrive, or success piece of it, though, is after that kind of adjustment period, if you will, for Saturday and Sunday, um, it seems like we've kind of fallen back into our rhythm, at least with the dosage, and when we give it to them at home in the morning and at school in the afternoon, and we're not having those sorts of behavior or issues at home after school or at night anymore. So it's only day 3, I guess. Well, day 5, but day 3, I'll say, after the transition period over the weekend. But so far so good. So how about you? Any struggle, strives, thrives to share?
ah, my struggle list is long this week. However, I'll just say that in our previous episode that you released kindly for me, it's been mostly personal struggles with some things that I've been dealing with personally, and then, of course, having, doctor's appointments and work and the other things on top of it. So it's just been quite overwhelming. The strive is actually what we're going to talk about today, and it was Avery's developmental medicine appointment, which I want to do a walkthrough because it's probably his most comprehensive appointment that we have on an ongoing basis. So I'll get into that in a few minutes. But our thrive is struggle, strive, thrive. Our thrive is that he's been doing much better with communication. So not just with me, but with his brother, with family members, with friends, and even something as simple as like greeting people and saying hi and bye, like,
Oh, cool.
in true, he is diagnosed with autism. So, like, things like making eye contact and then even acknowledging like someone's existence doesn't really come
Mm-hmm.
naturally to him. So, to see him becoming a little bit more interactive and to see him even just interacting with his brother a little bit more has been a huge success and something that I'm super, super happy to see.
That's cool. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. So, and I'm counting every little blessing this week.
Yeah, I mean, especially on, I'll say on the heels, but I don't remember which episode it was. I think it was actually episode 2 where we were talking about, having 3, maybe 4 or 5, words or signs that you could use to communicate. So from going to that point, that recently to this today, that's huge. That's great.
Yeah, and I'll say, he has the opportunity to work on speech and communication at both preschool and in ABA, and we do things at home. So between signing, PEC, and an AAC device, we're giving him as many tools as possible and meeting him where he is. So, that's a distinctive ask when they're in speech therapy. Like, hey, let's not necessarily focus on speech if we know that's going to be a struggle. Like, let's meet him
Yep.
where he is in communicating.
Yeah. Yeah. Communication is not just verbally speaking, right? I think is the
Right.
key there.
Right.
Cool. All right. Well, should we get into walking through Avery's developmental pediatrician appointment then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Curious,
Absolutely.
curious to hear
So
how it went.
it's kind of funny because you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday because medication has been a conversation. And I asked you some questions, and you're a KDM5C expert, as I would say, because you have experience with 5 kids, and Avery's only 4. So adding medication for him is a little bit scary for me. But we have seen an uptick, especially since his routine has changed. Um, his home living situation has changed. There's been a lot of stress. All of that agitates him. And so we've seen a lot more of the aggressive behaviors like flipping furniture and pulling hair and the face scratching and head banging and kind of throwing himself on the floor and banging his head. So,
Yep.
that was a pretty major concern going into the appointment. But what I don't think many people realize is, like, when you go in for a physical, you don't have a ton of preparation to go in. Maybe you have to fast because you're going to have blood work. But
Right.
when you go in for a developmental medicine appointment, you're looking at all of the different specialists and specialties oh, 1 second. Here's Big Brother. I love you. Have a good night at work. Um, you're going in having to think through all of the providers that you have and the coordinated care and the questions, concerns, things that have changed since the last appointment. Um, and considering where he is in our position now, we're looking at moving again, which is going to be disruptive to his
Right.
schedule. And so, like, I'm in preparing for the appointment the night before, like, I'm having conversations with you about advice or things to ask. And then I'm looking back through records and trying
Right.
to see what we covered last time and trying to see what upcoming appointments we have. And so, going into the appointment, I'll say, first of all, like, doing vital signs, getting his weight, getting his height. That is a stressful event. Like, he's already totally escalated
Yep.
because we
Yep.
struggle to get his weight, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
was, I was gonna say, do you even get any of the vitals? Because I know for us, we'll get weight and maybe height, but anything else, forget it.
he even just, and he's been, like, I would describe him as a professional patient, but he's also had some traumatic experiences because he's had to be held down so that, we can put electrodes on him, or he's had surgery and lost oxygen after surgery. Like, these are things that, create negative experiences, and then he associates that the next time. So, no, we don't try to capture vitals as much as possible. We did get a weight today, which was great because Avery's 4 years old. He's 28 pounds, which is in the second percentile, and he's in the first percentile for height at just under 3 feet tall. So size-wise, you're looking at a 4-year-old who's the size of a 2-year-old.
Yep.
And then leading into the appointment, we have a fantastic network of providers. So I'm super grateful for that. And I think other families, probably struggle with that. And one of the most difficult things is we have to go through the same spiel every time we go to the doctor. And you can't expect that even when there's a medical charting system that keeps up with everything, that they're actually prepared for the appointment. So you spend a lot of time reiterating things. But this particular provider is great about coming in prepared.
Oh, good.
So I would say today, because I don't want to go into great detail about everything, but some of the things that we covered in an hour and a half appointment included swapping all of his therapies and ABA and preschool over to a different program, which is difficult for insurance coordination. And there's paperwork that I have to obtain. There has to be, a termination date with one provider and then coverage with another provider. So that was a big part of the conversation. We also talked about the aggressive behaviors, and Avery was his true self today at the appointment, which, as you know, like we stayed at a place that was closer to the appointment because it would take us about 2 to 2.5 hours with traffic to get there in the morning. So we stayed at a place that was 30 minutes away, but it was new for him. So he was off routine and he didn't fall asleep until like almost midnight. So he's kind of flipping furniture and throwing things away, and the doctor, gets to see him in the nature that I see him at home, which led us to the decision to maybe start a new medication to help with his impulsivity, which is also like that creates anxiety for me.
Yeah.
But I'm also optimistic that it could help with some of the things that I'm dealing with at home with him.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, just to maybe some reassurance, if I can, I won't mention the medication, but 2 of our 3 boys are on that same one, and it's been very helpful for us, both at home and at school.
yeah. And it's, and because, you and I have had this conversation and we've talked about it in another community, like I already had some information about it. So when they introduced it, I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to Google the side effects. I need to go, like I had some context and I was comfortable saying, okay, I'm willing to try this.
Right.
And then, of course, we also just recently added Senna to help with his constipation issues, because that's an ongoing issue for us as well.
Right.
And then some of the other things that we talked about during this appointment were his pulmonology follow-up for tracheomalacia with an inhaler, some allergy medicine, emergency inhaler. He has an emergency medication for epilepsy since he is prone to seizures, but we have not seen that happen yet. And then, of course, the 2 new medications. And then we talked about the endocrinologist follow-up. We talked about a sedated MRI that's coming up for the Chiari malformation, which I think I talked about in our introductory episode.
Yep.
And then we also talked about GI and nutrition. So one of the biggest concerns, and this with your kids, is Avery is, being in the second percentile or first percentile.
Yeah.
There's always a challenge of like, okay, well, do we give them a feeding tube to make sure they're getting enough nutrition? Well, Avery has regressed in swallowing, so we've gone back to purees and shakes. And so I'm trying to get some of those things covered by insurance, as well as like diapers and things like that. So this is all part of a conversation in an hour and a half that I had to prepare for to go into. And then also, we applied
how far in advance would you guesstimate you started preparing not necessarily mentally, but like the information and the questions you wanted to ask and the bullets you want to make sure you hit while you're there with everybody, right? How much time did you invest in all that
So
preparation for the one appointment?
I would say I usually start planning for this appointment 2 months in advance,
Wow.
or at each individual appointment that he has, I take notes and send to the provider so that I don't have to do as much preparation. But I would say about 2 months ago, I reached out and started asking questions about getting diapers covered, getting Pediasure
Okay.
or Kate Farms, getting diapers covered, about the handicap placard, which that's also a struggle for me because Avery's so little, but he's also a high elopement risk. So when he gets
Right.
out of the car, if you put him on the ground, he's going to take off.
Yep.
He doesn't care who's around or what cars are around. So, when you think about like, I feel guilty sometimes about wanting to have that. And I think if I look away for 2 seconds and he's on the ground, that's a chance for him to get hit by a car
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or something else. So
I mean, even if he's, I mean, because we've met him in person, had the opportunity to meet you guys in person. I would say even if he were standing up, I mean, he's, if the car is big enough, he's so tiny that, I mean, I wonder if people would even see him standing up, right? I mean, if they're not paying attention or,
yes,
anyway, sorry to interrupt, but it's just like, yeah.
yes. So we talked about all of those things today. And of course, we also address, other than behavior, like how is speech therapy going? How is his rigidity? How is the spasticity? Are you noticing any changes with vision, with hearing, with the kind of, you run through the whole gamut of systems and things and diagnoses and preparing for anything that's upcoming. So,
Right.
coming out of today's appointment, we have 4 subsequent appointments within the next couple of weeks and a sedated MRI. And mind you,
Wow.
like, I work full
I
time.
was good. I
I
was going to
work
say,
full
you work,
time
not only that,
plus.
but you have another child too, right? And
Yeah,
it's,
and I
and
have
it's
a
just you.
16. Yeah, and I have a 16-year-old, and it's just me, and I'm working on building out a support network, because of recent circumstances, and it's been very overwhelming. And like, and I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this today, because it's so fresh. And I was driving home, and it was an hour and a half drive home, and I'm thinking I'm going to call Johnny and say, look, like, we need to talk about this, because I would say that the developmental doctor is our most valuable appointment, and they help with coordinating all of the other care that
Yeah.
we get. Like, they offload the burden of having to do some of the scheduling and the follow up, and they can order the prescriptions and handle the
Hmm.
stuff. But I'll also say that in Avery's situation, because he's adopted, I've also had to fight with coordination of benefits, because when he's on my medical insurance through work, his name is his adoptive name. When he is on the Medicaid insurance, they have not yet updated it in the state. So I'm in the middle of working through denied claims and stacks of medical bills and
Wow.
denied claims, and then things that are processed through Medicaid. So it is such a, I don't think about it until after, but I remember when I was talking to you, I said, dude, like, I've been awake for 3 hours and I need a nap. Like,
Yeah.
I just, and I'll say this visit was also a little bit longer, because we did meet with a social worker, because we have some safety concerns at home, and I'm trying to navigate some mental health things and some safety things in my town. And so I was able, to meet with a social worker and get some additional resources. But, the God's honest truth is, like, the resources just aren't there, or they're not readily available, or the system's not designed to protect or offload
Yeah.
anything. And that's, I came home and I went to work, and my level of exhaustion and being able to get through the day, I think is entirely relatable to you, to other parents, to like, this was just one appointment, and there's
And
so
the day's
much
not
that
even
goes
over yet,
into it.
right?
Yeah, and the day's not even over yet. Um, but I would say,
Wow.
so your kiddos, they have the developmental doctor's appointments, and I'd be curious to know if if your sentiment is the same as mine, or if you feel like it's a little bit different for you because, you're not just scheduling one, you're scheduling five.
Yeah. So how often does how often does he see the developmental pediatrician?
So it depends on his symptoms. If we're tracking and things are well, we see her twice a year. In this case, because he's starting a new medication, we will do a telehealth visit in 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll go
Okay.
back to the clinic in 3 months.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, first I'll say, I mean, you were talking about how vital having a developmental pediatrician in your bubble of providers, if you will, how critical that is. And I totally agree. But I will say, and I have no idea why. I mean, it's because we have 5 kids and we were just too busy trying to keep our head above water. But we didn't even know developmental pediatricians were a thing until 4 years ago or so, give or take. And our oldest is 15, and the ages go all the way down to 10, 11. Um, so yeah, we went a long time without that resource, but now that we have her, um, and can leverage her and her ability to pull in other specialties and all those good things, it's absolutely been a game changer. I mean, all the behavioral stuff and the medications associated with that, because we tried to put off medications for a very, very long time, just kind of because of the kind of the stigma that kind of comes along with them. We didn't know any better, but now that we do, it's like, well, none of that should be there, right? Because if you need something to be able to function, right, then get what you need. There shouldn't be any stigma or Savannah's word in episode 3 was shame. There shouldn't be any shame in needing to have those resources, right, and rely on them, because it totally is a game changer for them at school and at home, right? They can engage more, they can focus more, they can participate more, which are all good things. The reason why I asked about how often is because for us, if for the ones that are on medication, we see her twice a year. For all the other kids, it's once a year. But because she's great and because she understands that we have 5 kids and that's a challenge, she's extremely flexible in that, like the twin boys, we'll schedule them back-to-back appointments, typically, if possible, her first time slot in the morning, just because, which I try and do, tip for parents, I try and do that regardless of the appointment. Hang on, sorry. Got it early. I'll be right back. The school bus just got here. All right. So as I was saying, in our case, our developmental pediatrician is very accommodating to the fact that we have 5 kids and we need to get through all these appointments with her. So like I was saying, that one of the tips I would suggest to other parents is, what I always try and do is schedule their appointments for the provider's first time slot of the day, right? Just because inevitably, as the day goes along and, they run 5 minutes over here, 10 minutes over there, if you're towards the end of the day, you're going to be sitting there for who knows how long with a kid that doesn't want to be there and probably is going to have, a hard time, and struggle with like sitting there waiting. Right. So that's the first thing. And then, I'll try and uh, she's very accommodating with putting them back to back. So if like the twins, we'll take the first and second time slot, and rather than checking one in and then going back and then coming back out, and we just go for one and we roll straight into the second one.
Yeah.
And then same thing. Typically with the girls, do the same thing, and then Eugene, the youngest, he's on his own because he's still in elementary school, and it's just easier to work his day than it is with the kids in middle school and high school. But the other thing that's nice about our developmental pediatrician is, and probably others would do the same thing if you asked, but because we're scheduling all these appointments with her, even though she's part of a larger practice, with all sorts of specialties and doctors and all that kind of stuff, and all the machinery that comes with it, when we wrap the appointment, so she has her laptop and stuff in there. We'll talk about when we're going to meet next, and she'll schedule it herself before we even leave the room. So it's not like I have to go to the front desk or call or whatever. We take care of it right then and there before we even leave. And it's just and she's very communicative through like patient portal stuff online and changes we need there. I mean, it's just like,
it's
if you don't
a
have
game
one,
changer.
Yeah. If you don't have a developmental pediatrician, get one.
It's
one. It's the best I can say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and she's totally engaged. As we've talked about, our kids have a KDM5C genetic variation that's considered ultra rare. Only affects 1 in 30 or 32 million people. And she's got 5 patients like that. So I think it's safe to say she's got the most KDM5C kids out of anybody in terms of physicians. So she's actually, taken on more responsibility, I'll say, or volunteered to take on more responsibility because she's the foundation for KDM5C, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, but haven't yet. She serves as one of the physicians on the scientific advisory board for that nonprofit. So,
yeah.
So it's kind of a cheat for me, I guess, because when I attend those meetings myself, as a board member for that nonprofit, I kind of get to sneak in some extra doctor time on the Zoom call. But yeah, I mean, it's I can't believe we didn't even know this resource existed before like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, Avery is about to walk in the door, so I want to leave everybody, here it comes,
There you go.
with just a little bit of encouragement, and that is, you are the expert on your child. So when you go into these appointments, be as prepared as possible, do your homework, and you'll get the most benefit out of it. You have to go in prepared with the questions you want answers to, and you have to emotionally prepare yourself for either not getting the answer you're looking for, not getting the support you're looking for, or having, resources that are waitlisted. And the second thing is, and ask for our audience that our listeners share their experiences with us, and or ask us any questions they may have based on our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I think that was awesome. I'm glad everything went good for you guys this morning, and sounds like a lot of good progress. So
I think so. All right, we're signing off. Bye, everyone.
See y'all next time.